I was just trying to get my 4-year-old to preschool without another meltdown when this man walked through the doors and literally stopped in his tracks. The way he looked at me, I'd never experienced anything like it. That moment changed my entire world. If you've ever wondered if fairy tale love can happen in real life, stick around, because I'm about to tell you exactly how mine began in the most ordinary place imaginable. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in the magic of unexpected love stories. Let me tell you about the morning that flipped my world upside down. It was a Tuesday in September, and I was running late. Again, as a single mom, working 12-hour shifts at City General Hospital, being late had basically become my signature move. My scrubs were wrinkled, there was a coffee stain on my sleeve that I'd tried to scrub out in the car, and my daughter Ruby was in full 4-year-old protest mode because I'd made her wear the blue dress instead of her princess costume to school. "Mommy, I don't want to go to school today," Ruby whined as I practically dragged her through the parking lot of Sunshine Academy Preschool. Her little backpack was bigger than she was, and her curly hair was already escaping from the ponytail I'd wrestled it into 20 minutes earlier. "Baby, we've talked about this," I said, trying to keep the exhaustion out of my voice. "Mommy has to work, and you get to play with your friends and learn new things." The truth was, I loved my job as a nurse, but the guilt of leaving her every day never got easier. Being a single mom meant making hard choices every single day, and some mornings I wondered if I was doing any of it right. I pushed through the glass doors of the preschool, immediately hit by the familiar chaos of morning drop-off. Kids crying, parents rushing, teachers trying to corral everyone with bright smiles and endless patience. The walls were covered in colorful artwork and alphabet charts, and normally the cheerful atmosphere made me smile. But today, I just wanted to get Ruby settled and make it to work before my supervisor noticed I was late again. That's when I saw him. He was standing near the front desk, looking completely out of place in his perfectly tailored navy suit, among all the casual parents in yoga pants and coffee-stained shirts. But it wasn't his expensive clothes that made me stop in my tracks. It was the way he was holding a little boy's hand so gently, the confusion and slight panic in his eyes as he tried to navigate the check-in process. And then the moment he looked up and our eyes met across that crowded hallway, I swear time just stopped. I'd heard people talk about moments like this in movies, but I'd never believed it could actually happen. The way he was looking at me, like he'd seen something that took his breath away, made my heart do things I didn't think were possible anymore. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with kind brown eyes, and the kind of smile that made you forget your own name. But there was something vulnerable about him too, something that told me he was just as lost in this moment as I was. "Mommy, why did you stop walking?" Ruby tugged on my hand, snapping me back to reality. I realized I'd been standing there like a statue, staring at this stranger like a crazy person. "Sorry, baby," I mumbled, trying to regain my composure. But as we walked toward the sign-in area, I could feel his eyes following me, and my hands started shaking so badly I could barely hold my coffee cup. That's when disaster struck. As I reached for the sign-in sheet, my elbow knocked into someone behind me, and my coffee went flying, right onto his pristine white shirt. "Oh my God, I am so sorry," I gasped, grabbing napkins from the nearby table and trying to dab at the growing brown stain. "I'm such a klutz. I can't believe I just did that to your beautiful shirt. It probably cost more than my car payment." "Hey, it's okay," he said, and his voice was warm and deep, with just a hint of laughter. "Really, it's just a shirt." Just a shirt, right. A shirt that probably cost more than I made in a week, and I'd just destroyed it with my gas station coffee. I looked up at him, ready to apologize again, and found him smiling at me like I'd just done something wonderful instead of completely embarrassing. "I'm Andrew," he said, extending his hand. "And this is Tyler." The little boy beside him was maybe 5, with the same kind eyes as Andrew. But there was a sadness there that made my heart ache. "Carmen," I managed to say, shaking his hand and trying to ignore the way my skin tingled at his touch. "And this is Ruby." "Hi, Ruby," Andrew said, crouching down to her level. I love your dress. Blue is my favorite color. Ruby, who had been hiding behind my legs, peeked out and gave him a shy smile. Thank you. Mommy made me wear it instead of my princess dress. Well, I think you look like a princess in this dress too, Andrew said seriously, and Ruby giggled. The sound made something warm bloom in my chest, watching this stranger be so gentle with my daughter. Tyler and I are new here, Andrew continued, standing back up. We're both pretty nervous about the whole preschool thing, aren't we, buddy? Tyler nodded solemnly, and I noticed how tightly he was gripping Andrew's hand. There was a story there, I could tell, something that explained why this obviously successful man was standing in a preschool, looking lost and vulnerable. First day? I asked gently. First everything, really, Andrew admitted. I'm still figuring out the whole parenting thing. There was pain in his voice, carefully hidden but unmistakable to someone who knew what it felt like to be overwhelmed and alone. Without thinking, I touched his arm gently. It gets easier, I said. Not easy, but easier. And the teachers here are amazing. Miss Jennifer has been Ruby's teacher for 2 months now, and she's been a lifesaver. Thank you, he said quietly. And something passed between us in that moment. Understanding, maybe. Recognition of shared struggles and fears. Carmen. Ruby tugged on my scrubs. I need to go potty. Of course you do, I laughed, checking my watch and realizing I was now officially very late for work. I'm sorry, I have to go, Andrew said quickly. Maybe I'll see you at pickup. Maybe, I said, trying to sound casual, even though my heart was racing. As I hurried Ruby toward the bathroom, I snuck one last look back and found Andrew watching us go, that same amazed expression on his face. The rest of that day at the hospital, I couldn't stop thinking about him. During my lunch break, I found myself wondering what his story was, why he was suddenly caring for Tyler, and why the memory of his smile made my chest feel light and fluttery. I hadn't felt anything like this in years. After Ruby's father walked out when she was barely a year old, I'd built walls around my heart that I thought were unbreakable, but something about Andrew had slipped right through them. When pickup time came, I found myself checking my reflection in my car mirror and smoothing down my hair, which was ridiculous because I looked exactly like what I was, a tired single mom at the end of a long day. But as I walked into the school, I caught myself scanning the crowd of parents for a familiar face. Mommy, Ruby ran to me with a piece of artwork covered in glitter and finger paint. Look what I made. It's beautiful, baby, I said, scooping her up for a hug. Tell me about your day. Tyler was sad during snack time, Ruby said matter-of-factly. So I shared my crackers with him. Miss Jennifer said that was very kind. My heart squeezed. Ruby had such a big heart, always wanting to take care of everyone around her. It was one of the things I loved most about her, even when it meant she came home with every stray cat in the neighborhood. That was very kind, Ruby. I'm proud of you. Carmen. I turned to find Andrew walking toward us, Tyler's hand in his, and my stomach did a little flip. He'd changed out of his coffee-stained shirt into a simple gray sweater that somehow made his eyes look even more beautiful. Hi, I said, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. Hi yourself, he said, and his smile was even better than I remembered. Tyler told me all about Ruby's kindness at snack time. Apparently, she's quite the hero. She has a good heart, I said, ruffling Ruby's curls. Sometimes too good for her own good. I know the feeling, Andrew said, looking down at Tyler with such tenderness it made my throat tight. Listen, I know this might be forward, but would you maybe want to grab coffee sometime? When we're not wearing it, I mean. I laughed, and it felt good to laugh. It felt like something I hadn't done enough of lately. I'd like that, I said. But fair warning, I'm usually covered in something. It's not always coffee, but it's usually something. I'll take my chances, he said. And the way he was looking at me made me feel beautiful, despite my messy hair and tired eyes. We exchanged numbers, and as we walked to our cars, Ruby chattered about her day while Tyler listened quietly. I noticed how Andrew kept checking on the little boy, making sure he was okay, and my heart did that melting thing again. "See you tomorrow?" Andrew asked as we reached my car. "See you tomorrow," I confirmed, and as I drove home, I couldn't stop smiling. That coffee date turned into the most perfect afternoon I'd had in years. We met at Corner Cafe on Saturday, bringing both kids, and what I'd expected to be an awkward getting-to-know-you conversation turned into hours of easy talking and laughter. Andrew told me about his tech company, how he'd built it from nothing into something that employed hundreds of people. But he talked about it like it was just his job, not his whole identity. I told him about nursing, about the nights when I came home emotionally drained from trying to heal people who were broken in ways that went beyond physical injuries. He listened like every word mattered, asking questions that showed he really understood what I was trying to say. "Tyler is my nephew," he said quietly when the kids were busy with coloring books. "My sister and her husband were killed in a car accident 3 months ago. Tyler came to live with me because I'm all the family he has left." The pain in his voice made my chest ache. "I'm so sorry," I said, reaching across the table to cover his hand with mine. "That must be incredibly hard for both of you." "I have no idea what I'm doing," he admitted. "I mean, I ran a company. I thought I could handle anything. But parenting, trying to help him through his grief while I'm barely handling my own? Some days I feel like I'm failing him completely." "You're not failing him," I said firmly. "You showed up. You're trying. That's what matters." "Is it enough, though?" he asked, and I heard my own fears echoed in his voice. "I ask myself the same question every day," I said honestly. "Ruby's dad left when she was barely walking. Some nights, I lie awake, wondering if I'm screwing her up by not being able to give her everything she deserves, by working so much, by not having answers to all her questions about why her daddy doesn't want to see her." Andrew's hand turned over under mine, his fingers intertwining with mine. "You're an incredible mother," he said. "Anyone can see how much she loves you, how secure she feels with you. You're an incredible guardian, too," I said. "The way Tyler looks at you, the way he trusts you, that doesn't happen overnight. That's love, Andrew." We sat there for a moment, hands linked across the table, and I felt something shifting inside me. The walls I'd built were crumbling, and instead of terrifying me, it felt like relief. Over the next few weeks, our school pickup encounters became the best part of my day. Andrew would wait for me by the playground, and we'd let the kids play while we talked about everything and nothing. He told me about his dreams, of maybe stepping back from his company someday to focus more on Tyler. I told him about my plans to maybe go back to school to become a nurse practitioner, something I'd put on hold when Ruby was born. "Why did you put it on hold?" he asked one evening as we watched Ruby push Tyler on the swings. "Money, time, fear," I said honestly. "The usual reasons people give up on their dreams." "What if those weren't factors?" he asked. "What if you had support?" I looked at him sharply. "Andrew, I'm not trying to fix your life," he said quickly. "I'm just saying, dreams shouldn't die because of logistics." The way he said it, like my dreams mattered as much as his, made something warm and hopeful bloom in my chest. Everything changed the day my car broke down. I was supposed to pick up Ruby, but my piece of junk car decided to die in the hospital parking lot, and none of my usual backup plans were available. I was sitting on the curb, close to tears, when my phone rang. "Carmen, it's Andrew. Ruby's teacher called me because you weren't here yet. Are you okay?" The concern in his voice almost undid me completely. "My car died," I said, trying not to cry. "I don't know what to do. Ruby's probably scared, and I can't afford a tow truck until payday. And—" "Where are you?" he interrupted gently. 20 minutes later, his sleek black car pulled into the hospital parking lot, and both kids tumbled out to give me hugs. But it was Andrew's arms around me that made me feel safe for the first time in hours. "It's okay," he murmured into my hair. "We'll figure it out." He didn't just give me a ride. He called his mechanic, arranged for my car to be towed and fixed, And when I protested about the cost, he just looked at me with those patient brown eyes. "Let someone take care of you for once," he said simply. That night, he brought dinner to my apartment, Chinese takeout, that we ate on paper plates, while the kids watched movies on my ancient couch. My place was tiny and nothing fancy, but Andrew looked around like he was seeing something wonderful. "This is home," he said when I apologized for the mess. "Real home. It's beautiful." After the kids fell asleep, we sat on my balcony, sharing a bottle of wine and talking under the stars. That's when he told me about his childhood, growing up with parents who were never home, how success had always felt hollow until Tyler came into his life, how meeting me had made him realize what he'd been missing. "I've never felt like this before," he said quietly, "like I could just be myself, flaws and all, and it would be enough." "You are enough, Andrew," I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. More than enough. When he kissed me that night, soft and sweet under the moonlight, I felt like I was finally coming home after a very long journey. His hands were gentle on my face, and when we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "I'm falling in love with you, Carmen," he whispered. "I hope that's okay." "It's more than okay," I whispered back, "because I'm falling in love with you too." Our first real date was like something out of a dream. He took me to that little Italian restaurant downtown that I'd always wanted to try but could never afford. The kind of place with candlelight and cloth napkins and waiters who treated you like royalty. I felt completely out of place in my one good dress, but the way Andrew looked at me across the table made me feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. "You're staring," I said, blushing under his gaze. "Can you blame me?" he said. "You're incredible, Carmen. Not just beautiful, though you absolutely are, but incredible. The way you care for people, the way you love Ruby, the way you made Tyler smile for the first time since his parents died. You're changing both our lives just by being yourself." No one had ever talked about me like that before, like I was something precious and valuable, not just someone who took care of everyone else. It made me feel brave enough to reach across the table and take his hand. "You're changing our lives too," I said. "Ruby asks about you every day, and me." I forgot what it felt like to have someone to share things with, someone who cares about my dreams and my fears and my terrible jokes. "Your jokes aren't terrible," he said seriously, then grinned. "They're wonderfully terrible." I laughed so hard, I snorted wine, which should have been embarrassing, but just made him smile wider. That weekend, he surprised me with a trip to the lake. His company had a cabin there, he said, and his sister used to watch for me while we got away for a couple of days, just the two of us. "I don't know if I should," I started, but he took my hands gently. "No pressure," he said. "Just time together, time to talk and laugh and not worry about anything else for a while." The cabin was like something out of a magazine, all windows and natural wood, perched on the edge of a crystal-clear lake. We spent the morning walking the shoreline, talking about everything and nothing, sharing stories about our childhoods and our dreams. In the afternoon, we rented a little boat and spent hours just floating on the water, Andrew's arms around me as I leaned back against his chest. "I could stay here forever," I said, watching the sun sparkle on the water. "So could I," he said, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. "As long as you were here with me." That evening, we cooked dinner together in the cabin's kitchen, laughing as we tried to figure out how to work the fancy stove. We ate on the deck overlooking the lake, and as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Andrew pulled me into his arms and kissed me like I was everything he'd ever wanted. "I love you," he said against my lips. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "I love you too," I whispered back, more than I ever thought possible. We spent that night talking and kissing and holding each other, and for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace, like all the struggles and heartbreak had led me exactly where I was supposed to be. But of course, fairy tales don't happen without obstacles, and ours came crashing down on us like a tidal wave. I was at work, in the middle of a particularly busy shift, when my supervisor called me into her office. Sitting there were two people with cameras and notebooks, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. "Carmen, these reporters are asking questions about you and Andrew Sterling," she said carefully. "Apparently, he's quite famous." Famous. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. I knew Andrew was successful, but famous? As in, people take pictures of him, eating lunch famous. "We just want to ask a few questions about your relationship," one of the reporters said, with a fake smile. "How long have you been together? Are you living together? What do you think about the difference in your backgrounds?" The way she said backgrounds made my blood boil, but I kept my voice steady. "I don't have any comment. Please leave." But they didn't leave. They followed me to my car, to Ruby's school, to the grocery store. Suddenly, our quiet, private love story was fodder for gossip websites and social media. The pictures they printed were awful. Me looking exhausted after a 12-hour shift. Ruby crying because strangers were shouting questions at her. Andrew looking angry and protective as he tried to shield us both. The comments were even worse. People saying I was a gold digger, that I was using him, that someone like me could never really fit into his world. Some of them were so cruel, they made me physically sick. "I'm sorry," Andrew said one night as we sat in my living room. Ruby finally asleep after a day of hiding from cameras. "I never thought I should have warned you this might happen." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, and I hated how small my voice sounded. "About how famous you are, about what this would mean." "Because I wanted you to know me," he said desperately. "Just me, not the business or the money or any of that. When I'm with you, I'm not Andrew Sterling, CEO. I'm just Andrew, the guy who's terrified he's screwing up raising his nephew, who can't make pancakes without burning them, who thinks you're the most amazing woman in the world." "But I'm not, am I?" I said quietly. "Amazing, I mean. I'm just a nurse from the wrong side of town who can't even afford to fix her car without help." "Carmen, no," he said, reaching for me, but I pulled away. "Look at what they're saying about me, Andrew. About us. Maybe they're right. Maybe we're just too different." "You don't mean that," he said, and there was pain in his voice that made my heart break. "Tell me you don't mean that." But I was scared of the cameras and the comments, and the way people looked at me like I was some kind of fraud. Scared that maybe I really wasn't good enough for his world, and that eventually he'd realize it too. "I think we need some space," I said, the words tasting like poison in my mouth, "just until things calm down." The look on his face nearly destroyed me, but I forced myself to stay strong. "If that's what you want," he said quietly. It wasn't what I wanted. It was the opposite of what I wanted. But I was too afraid to say that, so I just nodded and watched the love of my life walk out my door. The next 3 weeks were the longest of my life. I threw myself into work and taking care of Ruby, but everything felt gray and empty. Ruby kept asking where Andrew and Tyler were, why they didn't come to the playground anymore, and I had to make up excuses because I couldn't explain to a 4-year-old that Mommy had gotten scared and pushed away the best thing that had ever happened to us. Andrew respected my request for space completely. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits. The reporters eventually moved on to other stories, but the silence Andrew left behind was worse than all their noise had been. I was picking up Ruby from school on a Friday afternoon, trying to pretend my heart wasn't breaking every time I walked through those doors, when Miss Jennifer stopped me. "Carmen, could you stay for a few minutes after the other parents leave?" she asked. "There's something I'd like to show you." I nodded, confused, and waited as the hallway emptied out. Ruby was playing with blocks in the corner, chattering to herself about something, when Miss Jennifer led me toward the windows that looked out onto the playground that was now covered in thousands of tiny white lights. They were everywhere, wrapped around the swings, draped over the jungle gym, hanging from the trees like stars. It looked like something out of a fairy tale, magical and impossibly beautiful. And standing in the middle of it all was Andrew, wearing jeans and a simple white shirt, looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him. "He's been out there for an hour," Miss Jennifer said gently. "Said he had something important to say to you." My hands were shaking as I walked outside, Ruby following behind me with wide eyes. "Wow, Mommy, it's so pretty," she breathed. "Hi, Carmen," Andrew said softly as I approached. "Hi, Ruby." "Hi, Andrew." Ruby ran to him for a hug, and he scooped her up like she was his own daughter. "Did you make the lights?" "I did," he said. "Do you like them?" "I love them. They're like stars." "That's exactly what I was hoping for," he said, setting her down gently. "Ruby, do you think you could go play with Tyler for a few minutes? He's right over there by the swings, and he's missed you so much." Ruby looked at me for permission, and I nodded, not trusting my voice. She ran off, leaving Andrew and me alone under the lights. "You did all this?" I asked, looking around at the magical transformation. "I had help," he admitted. "But yes, I wanted to show you something, Carmen. I wanted to show you that this is our world, not the boardrooms or the fancy restaurants or any of that other stuff. This. The place where we met, where our kids play together, where we fell in love. This is what matters." Tears were streaming down my face, but I couldn't seem to stop them. "Andrew, I'm sorry. I was so scared." "I know," he said, stepping closer. "I was scared too. Scared that you'd decide I wasn't worth the trouble. Scared that you'd realize you deserved better than someone who comes with paparazzi and gossip and all the ugliness that follows money around." "You're worth any amount of trouble," I said, finally finding my voice. "You're worth everything." "So are you," he said firmly. "You're worth everything to me, Carmen. You and Ruby, you're my whole world now. I don't care what anyone else says or thinks. I only care about you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, and my heart stopped completely. "I know it's crazy," he said, dropping to one knee right there on the playground. "I know we've only known each other for a few months, and I know there are going to be challenges ahead. But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life loving you and Ruby and building a family with you. Will you marry me, Carmen? Will you let me be the man who gets to love you forever?" I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I could only stare at this incredible man who had transformed a playground into a fairy tale just to show me how much he loved me. "Mommy, say yes." Ruby's voice called from across the playground, making both Andrew and me laugh through our tears. "Yes," I whispered, then louder. "Yes, Andrew. Yes to everything." The ring was perfect, simple and elegant, exactly what I would have chosen for myself. But more perfect than the ring was the way Andrew's face lit up when I said yes, the way he stood up and kissed me like I was his whole world, the way Ruby and Tyler ran over to hug us both and demand to know if this meant they were going to be brother and sister now. Our wedding 6 months later was everything I'd ever dreamed of, and nothing like I'd ever imagined. We kept it small, just family and close friends in the garden behind Andrew's house. Ruby was my flower girl in a princess dress that made her absolutely glow, and Tyler was Andrew's best man, taking his job very seriously with the rings. I wore my grandmother's pearls and a simple white dress that made me feel beautiful, but it was the look in Andrew's eyes when I walked down the aisle that made me feel truly radiant. He was crying, which made me cry, which made Ruby announce loudly that everyone is leaking from their eyes. "I love you," he whispered, as we said our vows. "All of you, forever." "I love you too," I whispered back. "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for letting me find you," he said, and then he kissed me as his wife for the first time. Our honeymoon in Paris was like a dream. We walked along the Seine, holding hands, ate croissants in tiny cafes, and spent hours in the Louvre, pretending to understand art. Andrew bought me flowers from street vendors every single day, and I took pictures of everything because I wanted to remember every moment of feeling this happy. "I can't believe this is my life," I said one evening as we sat on our hotel balcony overlooking the city. "Believe it," Andrew said, pulling me closer. "This is just the beginning, Mrs. Sterling." "Mrs. Sterling." I was still getting used to the sound of that, still amazed that I got to be the woman who loved this incredible man. 2 years later, as I sit here telling you this story, I still can't quite believe how it all started. With spilled coffee, and a ruined shirt, and two people who were just trying to figure out how to be good parents to the children they loved. Ruby is 6 now, and she calls Andrew Daddy without any prompting from us. Tyler is 7, and he's blossomed into this confident, happy little boy who calls me Mama Carmen and gives the best hugs in the world. We're a family in every way that matters, built on love and patience, and the belief that sometimes the most beautiful things come from the most unexpected places. Andrew stepped back from day-to-day operations of his company last year so he could be more present for our family, and I started nursing school with his full support and encouragement. We're building the life we both dreamed of, one day at a time. Sometimes people still say we're an unlikely pair, and I guess they're right. A billionaire tech CEO and a single mom nurse from opposite sides of town. On paper, we don't make sense. But love doesn't live on paper. Love lives in the space between two people who choose each other every single day, who build each other up, who create something beautiful together. Love lives in morning coffee shared over breakfast with sticky-fingered children, in bedtime stories read in funny voices, in quiet moments on the couch after the kids are asleep. It lives in the way Andrew still brings me flowers every Friday just because. It lives in the way he looks at me across a crowded room, like I'm still the most amazing thing he's ever seen. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to believe in love again. Subscribe for more real-life love stories that prove miracles happen every day. Remember, your own fairy tale might be just around the corner, waiting for you in the most ordinary moment of the most ordinary day. Love finds you when you least expect it, in the places you'd never think to look. Sometimes it comes with spilled coffee and ruined shirts and two scared people just trying to do right by the children they love. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it comes with a man who will light up a playground just to show you that you're worth every star in the sky. This is my love story. What's yours going to be?